Welcome to Beyond the Signboard, where you get the opportunity to learn all there is to know about your real estate journey from professionals who are passionate about property. I'm Amy Bennett, your host, and I look forward to providing you with education, inspiration, and a behind-the-scenes look at the world of real estate. Well, good morning. I am delighted to have who I call our aged care angel, the amazing Marie Paulson. She is the founder of Aged Care Choices Australia and an amazing human being. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. I'm very privileged to have the opportunity to chat with you.
Oh, it is honestly so exciting. This is your first podcast ever?
It is.
Have you ever listened to a podcast?
Yes.
Amazing. What kind of podcast do you like?
I like Mia.
Oh.
Mamma Mia.
Yes. Yeah. You like that inside?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one I started listening to was a true crime podcast, which I enjoyed. I think we did a road trip and I listened to like 12 episodes in a row or something like that.
I don't know whether to be happy about it.
Well, you've just recently travelled yourself.
We have. We've just come back last night.
Yes.
From Western Australia, our first time over there. My husband and I had 3 beautiful weeks.
Amazing.
Wonderful weather.
Yeah, beautiful. So 2 weeks in Margaret River, you tell me?
Yes, 2 weeks in, we stayed in a town called Dunsborough.
Okay. And
we explored the Margaret River. We did caving, lots of walks. We actually went to the World Surfing Championship down there.
How amazing.
Yeah.
Was the surf up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we got to watch the finals of the surfing comp. And then on the last week we had in Perth.
Awesome. Now, when you're in Margaret River, you said that you enjoyed the Shiraz and
I love
chocolate.
Shiraz. Chocolate, yes. I think I have a frequent flyer card at the Margaret River Chocolate Factory.
I didn't even know there was one there.
There's 2.
Well, I'm sort of more leaning to the Shiraz. My husband used to live in WA and there's a particular brand, Xanadu, he loves their Shiraz. And a long time ago I organised a case of them as a surprise.
Ooh, yeah. Very nice.
I always ask with people with red wine, do you like it room temperature or cold?
Cold.
Yes, me too.
Yes.
Controversial.
Yes.
Marie, we are going to have a really lovely conversation. You are, as I said, an absolute angel in your industry. For those that are listening in, Marie just shook her head. We would love to learn your journey of how you ended up with your incredible business that's now been going for 11 years and recently relocated back to the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So I actually grew up around nursing homes, and they were called nursing homes back in the 60s and 70s, and that was in Sydney. And my stepmum was a nurse and the cook as well, and my dad was the handyman. And it was a 24-bed mum and dad nursing home, and it was, looking back, it was a happy place, but so very, very different to what aged care homes are today.
Yeah.
I try not to use the term nursing home, and I will always try and say care centre or care home. After school, I was a secretary, and then after the children, I moved into insurance.
Okay.
And I worked for NRMA and here in Brisbane also. And I loved what I did until I saw the damage from bushfires and floods and people losing everything. And I thought, these people they have nothing now. Who's there to help them? Mm-hmm. And also road crash victims, the families, after losing someone. I left insurance and thought I can make a difference in another area. And that's when I decided to try aged care.
Yes. Isn't it amazing that you had that connection as a child? And you mentioned to me off air too that you would you had a really nice connection with the residents, spending that time and tea and tidy, did you say?
Yes. I was the tea and tidy girl.
Yeah.
I'd be in my school uniform.
Yes.
And actually, something I didn't mention, there was one lady that had been at the home for many years, and her daughter lived in country New South Wales. It was northern New South Wales. But she'd heard that I was getting engaged, and she actually made our engagement cake and brought it down to Sydney.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Look, I think in that time frame, you know, when you have loved ones in care, you know, there's such a pivotal role that the team there play. You know, they're often spending so much more time with your loved ones. And, you know, I fondly recall when my gran was in care at Estia at Mount Coolum, she had the most beautiful carer, Jeffrey, and he would sing to my gran. And honestly, I just always felt such a comfort knowing that she was safe and had that care and love.
I think it takes a very special person to work in aged care. I personally have not had any stories of cruelty. And I think that's what scares people.
It does, yeah. We're going to talk about myths and misconceptions with the industry, and also, you know, obviously there's been radical changes as well. We'll talk about the Royal Commission as well. But ultimately, your role with Blue Care, do you want to chat through that? Because that's really interesting.
I worked for Blue Care in an admissions capacity. So people that would ring in and say, oh, you know, we're needing mum or dad to go into a home. And back then, so 15, 16 years ago, it was hard to get into a home. There were long wait lists and people were desperate. And being bound and employed by Blue Care, I thought, I want to help these people, but I can't, because all I can say is, yes, you're on our wait list.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? It's a bit like being a bank manager or a mortgage broker, isn't it? You have such a wider access. What was the reasons, and I know, you know, now, you know, with your clientele, but what were the reasons sort of back then that people were needing to admit mum and dad? Was it at kind of a crisis time point?
Yes. Yes, I don't think that has changed over the years.
Yeah.
I think particularly with Blue Care being covering quite a large regional area as well, we were seeing a lot of folks in northern Queensland and northern New South Wales that were needing care. Traditionally, they're the ones that will stay at home the longest. Quite often they're on farms or properties.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not until the very end when they need to go into care. And that's the tough part, because quite often it was too late.
And I think that's something, you know, we're really going to delve into, and really that sort of ignited a passion within you.
Yes, it did. It was, I needed to know that I could offer more, not knowing whether I could, but I wanted to. So I decided I was actually going to retire, made a flippant comment, and the general manager of Blue Care suggested I go out and try being a placement consultant. And I thought, couldn't do that. But he, to this day, he is still someone that I would go to ask a question.
Yeah, you said he was a really good guide.
Very, very good. And I made the decision to throw my hat in the ring and give it a go. I spent 12 months getting to know the homes and getting to know the people that run the homes. And I think one of the most important lessons I learned is that you can walk into a home, and if the staff have a smile on their face, it's a good sign. If they chat to you not knowing who you are,
that's
a good sign.
Yeah.
And because it stems from management.
Absolutely.
And there has to be someone not just sitting behind a desk, because managers of aged care homes do not have to be a registered nurse. They can be the business manager.
It's an interesting thing, and I think let's delve a little bit deeper there as well, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners may not have knowledge around government funded, private owned. Are you able to sort of let us know what options are out there for residential, that next stage?
So government funded aged care homes. So this is actually a myth. A lot of people think when they hear the term government funded aged care that they believe that you can just go in and only pay a percentage of your pension. The difference between a government funded aged care home and private aged care is quite significant. So private aged care doesn't fall under the same legislation. It falls under the Retirement Villages Act. So the likes of someone like Seasons or Freedom Aged Care. And what someone does then is they would purchase a property, usually a unit or a villa, and the provider or the scheme operator would instigate a home care package. But you're still living independently.
Yes.
And then when the time comes, if you have to leave, then there's usually the deferred management fees or the exit fees. Government-funded aged care are run by not-for-profit organisations as well as syndicated and family-owned operators.
Great. All new for me, so I'm sure our listeners are also learning as well. And that's exactly why you're here, Marie, because it's something that is just, I feel, a really big, not minefield, but there's just so much to know.
Yes. It's so government-funded aged care homes, what you have on your side is the fact that if someone has to pay an accommodation charge, and in this day and age most of these are quite high, if someone pays that money and the provider for whatever reason has to close its doors, you will never lose your money.
Okay.
Because it is protected by the Commonwealth government.
So that's an initial fee when you're moving in?
Yeah, there's 4 ways.
Okay.
So there's several fees. There's 2 that are set by the government.
Sure.
And those fees apply wherever you go. And you could be in a home in WA, Northern Territory, or here. So everyone pays what we call a basic daily care fee, and that's all your nursing care. And that's the fee that's equivalent to 85% of a full pension.
Okay, because we hear that so often, that there isn't much left of the pension.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the other fee, so the government has said that those that can will contribute a little more to their care. So that's called a means-tested care fee.
Sure.
And once you submit your paperwork to Services Australia, they'll determine how much that fee is.
So we haven't delved too much into what your current role is, but the good news is that this is everything that you help people navigate.
Yes.
And that's why you're such a vital part of my business, but also coming onto the podcast, because we had an opportunity to meet. We had some beautiful mutual clients. And if you don't mind, I'd love to share how we got to know each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I had been asked by a beautiful older couple, a different couple than we worked together. They were really stuck on, where to next. So living independently, beautiful, marriage of 50 plus years, but knew that next stage was coming, very overwhelmed, inability to be able to drive by that stage. So, being the kind of person I am, I thought, look, I'm going to try and navigate this space. I'm going to do my own research, due diligence, education. I think it was one day, Marie, 7 different properties I visited, and then the next day I went to a networking BNI breakfast, and somebody said, what do you need from the group? And I said, look, would anybody know? And lo and behold, it was your son-in-law, Ryan, was literally sat next to me, and he said, I know exactly the person. So I was able to connect with you, learn what you did, and, as a placement consultant. And then, it's gone on to, anybody I know in that scenario. But we had a beautiful shared experience with some clients clients. It was just a dream to see you in action. I mean, I have had, personal experiences with loved ones being admitted into care, but certainly as a grandchild, to see the level of paperwork and questions, phone calls with ACAT, like just so many things. And I think that's the most important thing for any listeners and viewers certainly, is to know that there are people that can help navigate this journey.
Yes, and again, people living at home, and as they age, quite often they have some home help through a home care package. So they've had an ACAT assessment. If something happens, though, and they're told that they need to go into permanent residential or respite care, they think, oh, yes, I've got an ACAT. Mm-hmm. But what they often don't realise is that they don't have the correct approvals.
Okay.
So that's when we have to get on to ACAT. Mm-hmm. And sadly at this time, it's taking quite some time in community.
That's to get somebody to come into the home and to assess the person's level of care that they're required.
That's exactly right. So it's not a bad thing to perhaps, if you feel that, mum or dad or a loved one is getting on and that they might be fine for the time being, but try and broach the subject, get them to have an ACAT assessment. Now, from a medical or clinical point of view, the ACAT summary is probably only good for about 3 months because, as we know, as we age, our needs change.
And that deterioration can happen quite rapidly.
But at least the approval is in place. So someone like myself, I know if I see an ACAT that's more than 3 months old, I know exactly what I need to do, and that is to either get onto a doctor, get a health summary and get things up to date. I also have my own little template that I use.
Yes, you're very organised. I love it.
Looking at the care needs of someone. So these are all things that we put in place because there's not a lot of vacancies in aged care homes.
I think that's a really common, that's kind of where I had heard a lot of frustration around, literally on the phone ringing, 10, 20 waiting lists, all of those things that, in that particular scenario or two times in that scenario, it was, a beautiful husband and wife that wanted to stay together as well.
Yes, it's hard when a husband and wife want to go into care together because no one wants to separate them. There's some implications, though, around the financial side of it. And quite often, without the knowledge, they could be losing quite a bit of money.
Yeah, you definitely, you advocate for people having financial planning support.
Yes.
I think over the time we've got to know each other, what I really love about you, Marie, is, you kind of want to prevent people, rather than at that critical moment, more upstream, planning. You mentioned about, being able to, I guess, forecast what's ahead. And what you said, which I loved, is that it may never happen.
I think that's important to, get across to families because it's just about being prepared.
Absolutely.
It's just about being prepared. We hear things, particularly living on the Sunshine Coast, be storm prepared.
Yes.
But we may never get a cyclone.
That's exactly right.
But at least if we know what to do, if we've got that little box packed.
Yes.
And we think, okay, well, now's the time. Because if someone ends up in hospital unexpectedly, and more unexpectedly, they're told, well, you can't go home.
Yeah, let's chat about that, Marie, because that was something we, spoke about off air, because that's often you've established yourself in your business. You're obviously very good at what you do. You're a trusted professional. You are that first point of call with the hospital discharge team to be able to help people navigate that. But you were just saying as well that that could be, that could be somebody that's been in their home for a number of years and they have a fall or a heart attack and then they can't return to the home.
No, that's exactly right. So they go into hospital, they think, oh, okay, the doctors, nurses, they'll get me better and I'll be home in a week.
Yes.
And then particularly following a fall, because it might be a hip or a knee, or there are high falls risk. And particularly if someone is living alone or if their partner is elderly themselves, if either one was to have a fall, it's not necessarily safe for the partner to be able to get them off the floor or wherever. So by being prepared, knowing what the financial implications might be, of course having your ACAT assessment. There's two mandatory documents. One is the ACAT, this is for government-funded aged care, ACAT assessment codes and an enduring power of attorney. And this is a document that a lot of older folks, again, are very reluctant to draw up because they feel that that's the last bastion of their independence.
It's a bit like the driver's license, isn't it? I remember my granddad, oh dear, I remember us begging his doctor to take it off him because, but it was just that independence. And
Correct.
I mean, we just spoke as well, when people are in their 80s, 90s, and that generation as well, there's so much fear about losing it all. We spoke about, that they've worked everything, for that nest egg for the kids.
Correct.
They fear that that's gone as well.
Yeah, so just on the enduring power of attorney.
Please.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
What I would recommend is have a clause put in there, just
Okay.
saying it can only be invoked upon a capacity letter from a doctor.
Sure.
So it just means that Mary can't just walk in and sell off everything or make the decisions while mum or dad still has that capacity to do so. On the financial side, so we're very fortunate since 2014 when the last lot of reforms came about. If you have to pay an accommodation charge these days, there's actually 4 methods of payment.
Okay.
So you can pay the accommodation in full, you can pay it in part and the balance by interest payments. In that scenario, if it's paid in full, once you pass or leave to transfer, the money is refunded in full.
Wow. That's a huge misconception, would you suggest?
That's probably one of the biggest ones.
Absolutely.
So a lot of older folks, they may only have their home, and in this day and age, the home's probably quite considerably, dollar-wise, it's a lot more. So the accommodation charges are quite high as well, and they think, but I'm not leaving anything to the kids. But I think it's so important for them to understand it all goes back. It all goes back. And it's paid, when someone passes, the money is paid into the estate to be dispersed as per the principal's wishes.
Okay, sure.
So you still have the last say.
You still make that decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, I think that is, that's a huge, I guess, myth or one thing as well, you mentioned about the reforms as well. One of the observations I had when going through that process is there is a standard document that all homes must have.
It's there's a residential agreement. Now, when I first, even back in my Blue Care days, we had our own residential agreements and it would have been very different to Joe Blow's.
Yes.
Since 2014, I've found I always like to look at the agreements on behalf of my client, but I also tell them that they can have a lawyer have a look at it.
Excellent.
I'm not a legal person, but I know what I'm looking for, so I still like to make sure that they're all correct. Now, these documents are very standard, But because they are a legal document, they'll have all the terms and conditions that where a home can ask for payment or when they can ask someone to leave.
Okay.
So these are all important things for the families to understand.
And that is, that's your superpower really, is not only navigating the differences, but then also being able to explain that.
Yes.
And the implications for the potential resident.
Yeah, I think too, because it is legal jargon, and I know myself, if I'm looking at a document and I think, oh, that's all too hard, I'm sure it's correct, I'll just sign it.
Absolutely.
But being on the other side, because I do understand it, I can break it down into layman's terms and what it means. For example, if when someone goes into care, the room that they go into, that is theirs for tenure of care. They cannot just be moved willy-nilly.
Okay.
So the times that someone can be asked to move would be if their care needs change and they need to go into a more sensitive care area, or if someone would like a room with a better view, they can ask the home when that becomes available, and absolutely they will be moved.
Yeah, amazing.
But the staff, the home can't just move someone because they feel like it.
And do you think that's an important, or I guess a vital component, is having what feels like home, your own space, and
Absolutely.
being, because I think it's so hard to fathom going from a home, and I mean certainly in the experiences that you've had, I have no doubt be sort of 20, 30, I'm imagining 40, 50 years in the same home potentially as well.
Yes.
The comfort of having the grandkids to stay, the memories there.
Yes.
And then how do you transfer that into a smaller space?
Correct. So that's what I think I hear a lot of, and is this what my life has come to, one room? And the way I explain it is that's just your bedroom.
Yes.
It is just your bedroom. And if it's someone that perhaps has come from a home with a nice garden, they might have potted in the garden, I'm not going to put them into a high rise on the top floor. I think it's important for them for me to find a home that's got a lovely outdoor area. Perhaps the room opens out onto a courtyard. And again, just reinforcing that it's just the bedroom, the lounge room, the dining room, the common areas, they're yours.
Yes.
The gardens are yours.
Yes.
You can potter, you can do whatever.
And what's the general consensus? No two people are the same, so it's the same with.
It's I'd have to say, I have very few clients that go in willingly.
I think, I was quite surprised when you said that to me, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of sometimes, I love lifestyle villages. I obviously sell in some beautiful villa complexes, and I kind of think, when I get to 55, I'm going to enjoy the bingo. But let's chat about that, Marie, because what is the perception of that next stage?
So when we're speaking with folks, perhaps in their 80s or 90s, they may have had a loved one or visited an old-style nursing home, and it was usually 4 people to a room.
Wow.
With just the curtain
wow.
in between. And
shared bathrooms?
Shared bathrooms.
Wow, Marie.
Communal bathrooms. Yes.
Wow.
Most homes today, even the older homes, and we've got some aged care homes that would be 30, 40 years old, they've been refurbished and they've done away with a lot of the shared rooms, and they've been converted to single rooms with their own bathroom.
Great.
So the things that you can't change, there's really only one thing, and that's the bed.
Okay.
But in saying that, I've had homes that have said, you know what, if we've got a couple and they want to be together, we'll do what we can.
Yeah, lovely.
But the idea is to personalise the bedroom to mum or dad's likes, photos, anything. If you can put anything in the room,
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't impede the staff,
Yeah.
they've got to be able to move around.
I think that was my grand's problem. She had a lot
Yeah.
of things. There was a lot going on.
Look, I had a lady she went into care last year, and the funny thing was she didn't come from her own home. She had been living with her son and daughter-in-law. Well, when she turned up at the aged care home, she turned up in one of the small moving trucks.
Yes.
And she had bought everything but the kitchen sink.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I think if she could have unplumbed that,
Yeah.
she would have taken
I
that.
know. My gran had those plastic storage tubs.
Yes.
Probably, I wouldn't even be exaggerating, like 6 of them, Marie, mega ones,
Yeah.
just needed all her things there.
Yes.
It was a really interesting journey to,
Yes.
this was going back a little while. It was funny because my gran was quite a heavy smoker. And obviously that was a huge transition. So, anytime she would be literally at her door as soon as we arrived, take me out, she'd have her cigarettes ready because obviously you couldn't smoke back then in the room. And so we'd have to wheel her out basically onto the road. But, it's those things, it's those habitual things. I mean, she'd smoked in her house we lost her at nearly 95. So, like, she'd smoked wherever she goddamn wanted to for 80 odd years.
It's smoking can still be one of the hardest things to accommodate because you can't smoke on aged care premises.
That's right, yeah.
So, and
much to the dismay of the nurses, I'd say.
Absolutely. And pre-COVID, when staffing wasn't as low as what it has become, although it is improving,
yes,
you'd usually find that a carer would be able to go out
Correct.
with the resident.
Correct.
Or they'd have a smoker's apron on or something like this, and they could still have their little sneaky.
Yes, yeah.
But these days, the staffing levels
Yeah.
just don't allow for that. It's very hard because, again, it's taking that independence away from someone. One of the best things I find with a smoker is if they've come from hospital.
Yes.
Because they can't smoke
That's
in
right.
hospital.
That's exactly right. Well, in saying that, I did have a phone call. This is so funny that I'm saying this. I did have a phone call when Gram was at SKU. I think it was before the public hospital, so it was when the public patients could go to the private hospital. Phone call here at the office to say that my Gram was caught smoking in her room. Brand new hospital. I think they had something like $1.6 million of artwork. And she just couldn't wait till my lunch break. So anyway, but yes, then from then on she did have a nicotine patch.
Yes, yes.
She was a tough woman. I was just thinking then as well when we spoke about smoking, what about pets?
Pets. This is a really, really good one. There are homes around, believe it or not. Maybe not so much on the Sunshine Coast, but certainly in Brisbane where you can have a pet. But the implication of having a pet is that the resident has to be able to look after it.
Yes.
So it usually rules it out.
Yeah.
But pet therapy is huge.
Of course.
I'd say 99% of homes will have pets coming in regularly within the home.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, they might even have a chook pen.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Things like this. And some of the residents can go down and collect the eggs and, that type of thing. But pet therapy is a big thing.
It's huge. I remember my granddad, he was in a high care dementia ward here in Caloundra. And so it was like a locked facility, but they had a beautiful garden and pathway. And we used to take our dog. And I never forget there was a lovely resident there and she would always say, "Why have you got my dog?" And anyway, I'd always let her play with the dog, but the joy that he brought to everybody, it was so lovely.
Absolutely. So if there's been a pet, the pets can visit
Yeah.
as often, as wanted.
And also let's chat about, because I think you also really important for you to dispel that myth about, because the perception is, it's like jail, I can't go out or I can't go back to my home. We just sort of spoke about the ability for people to get that closure.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that I would say to one of my families is when you go to look at a home, ask to see the lifestyle calendar. That's first and foremost. So you can see what goes on. Now, residents aren't locked up.
Yes,
they are definitely not jails. They are not hospitals. It's just their new home, the new chapter. And if they like to go out, there might be a friend. It doesn't have to be a family member. They might have a friend that says, I'm going to the bowling club. I'll come and pick you up.
Yeah.
They take them out for a few hours or the day, then they take them home. They also can go out overnight. And it just depends on the person's situation for that one.
Sure.
And families are encouraged to keep it to a minimum amount of time. But families, that might work for Christmas or special birthdays.
Yeah.
Most of the newer homes these days have a private dining room.
I know, you wouldn't want to leave. Honestly,
No.
where you placed our clients, oh my gosh, I just coincided a visit with happy hour. I couldn't believe it.
My word. Look, that's why the lifestyle calendar is really important. I think a lot of people think, there'll just be a person that comes in and plays piano. No.
Isn't it amazing though? Absolutely. Or you think, you see the bus head off.
The buses. I love the buses. I do remember in my Blue Care days when families would say, do they have bus outings?
Yeah, isn't it fun?
Yes. And even when it's wet, I remember there was one year and we just had continual rain, a bit like
it's happening now, yeah.
And the Blue Care buses would just go for a drive.
Yeah.
And coming home through the Macca's drive-through.
That's classic.
And your 50-cent cone, I think they were only about 30 cents then. But
oh, my God, like 20 of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah. What a vision. And I think I love that because, living here in Caloundra and, obviously like walking along the beach in the morning, I'd quite often see some of the, lifestyle villages will have their bus there. And it makes sense. And it's those things that we forget, isn't it, when we've got the ability to drive and have our independence?
A typical weekly calendar, they would have. Not all homes have their own buses. The majority do. There's only a couple that don't. But those that do, they'll do trips to shopping centres, and the residents that are able to independently walk around, they'll be given a time to meet back.
Perfect.
And, but they're free then to go and browse in the shops. But lifestyle carers will always accompany those.
Yeah, great.
Now, the buses aren't big enough so that all the residents can go at the same time. So you might see an outing, this one, they're going down to Redcliffe, down to the foreshore down there. Dad, you might like that.
Yes.
Because they're going fishing.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things. Quite often, it's the men that we forget about.
So true, isn't it?
My word.
That need that connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the men in the home, if I've had a family say to me, look, Dad was, he was just a hard worker and he still wants to do those things, I'll look for a home that's got perhaps a men's shed.
Yes, great.
Or a men's group.
Yes.
And think, first and foremost, it's always about the care. So I've got to meet those care needs.
Yeah.
But very close second is how are we going to engage them within life?
Absolutely. Because it's actually a renewed, it can actually.
Just that next chapter.
Yeah. And let's chat as well too. I think one thing that you mentioned too, Marie, which was kind of a surprise to me, was about malnourishment. That was a really interesting thing because I know personally, my nana went into care. We just lost her on Saturday. And thankfully she was in care, but, she was living independently, leaving the oven on and all of those horror stories. Unfortunately, during COVID where we were her two kids were in different states.
Yes.
We actually thought, look, having been independent for so long, when she'd move into care, in fact, she flourished because I would suggest she was probably just having little tidbits of food.
Correct. Quite often, they can't get out to shop. So unless a family member or a close friend is shopping for them, then they don't have the food in the home. But it's all well and good having the food in the home if they know how to operate a stove or a cooktop or a microwave.
And nutritious food as well.
And I won't say it happens a lot, but I've certainly I've had clients where this has happened. Food has gone off, and this was prevalent during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
That someone living with dementia may not fully understand the implications of keeping food refrigerated.
Yes, yep.
And so we were having people that were becoming quite ill because A, they weren't eating, or B, they were eating food and ending up with food poisoning, consequently ending up in hospital and not being able to go back home.
Such a tough cycle too, because I remember as my gran was still living independently, but I mean, this was in Preacham Beach, she would catch the bus to Coolum and then she was, well into her 80s and have to carry the shopping bags of groceries.
Yes.
It was a big undertaking. Like, I think it's all of those things that there is that real missing piece, isn't there? I mean, now you've got a lot more support with, aged care packages and things like that.
Yes, you do. It's but a lot of people, they're not on the right package either. And because you might have had someone that's turned 70 or so, they were assessed and they might be, because with the home care packages, they go from level 1 through to level 4. And they might have been assessed as, say, a level 2, so very low, or low care, a little bit of domestic help.
So is that cleaning or?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you'd have someone come in and do a weekly clean, perhaps put some washing on,
Sure.
but no nursing care. But no one has and suddenly the person is forgetting to take their medications or mixing up their medications.
Yeah, I know that from my pharmacy days. I used to deliver Webster packs and I'd go and, so that's pre-done medication for those listening. And, it was heartbreaking. I'd go in a week and not one had been taken.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I know all about that.
Yes, very common. And so people don't realise, families don't realise that you need to keep on top of the home care packages. There's still a long wait, unfortunately, for a level 3, because with the packages, the home care is not my area, but what I do know of home care, level 3 and level 4 are your high care areas, but between 12 to 16 hours a week is still not enough.
That's the maximum on level 4.
That's the maximum on level 4. Now, the wait time for these packages, I remember a couple of years ago, and I can't even remember which government was in, but we were, as the public, we were told no one will wait more than a month for a home care package. Level 4s, we're still waiting up to 12, 15 months. Level 3s, probably the same.
It's just such a is that just because there isn't the staff?
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
Sure.
So, and we might find that someone that's been assigned a level 3 or a 4, that the home care provider can provide a level 2 package hours, which is only 4 hours.
Yeah, gosh, there's a huge gap there. And I can see where this is going, Marie, because obviously waiting that 12 months without getting that care, miss medication, falls.
They end up in hospital.
That's right,
And, when, it's very hard for someone that is not expecting to have an unseen or unplanned medical incident and suddenly they're told they can't go home.
And so to that point, chat to me about, why that's a huge part for you about this forward planning.
Yes.
Chat about that. And I think there's so much you love about your job and I am getting you back because we have so much to talk about because I know this is going to be something that so many people will appreciate and certainly something I see, all the time because obviously I get to the stage where, we'll meet and generally I'm assisting in the sale of a property and the downsizing and everything. But, chat about how people can, preempt this stage.
So I think it's important for all parties to be involved. So I get asked when I'm meeting with a family, does mum or dad need to be there? There's two different scenarios, and one of them is if it's future planning.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about down the track that may never eventuate.
Yes.
But while ever mum or dad has a say, I think it's so important. So with myself at that point, what we're talking about is what does an aged care home look like today?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do? What can't you do? And there's not a lot that you can't do, apart from drive.
Yes.
You cannot drive.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But it's about what does aged care look like? What documentation is needed? So that could be having the correct ACAT referrals and enduring powers of attorney in place. Do you need an advanced health directive? All these documents you can put in place.
While you're fit and well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
What age, Marie? What does that look like in your sort of ideal scenario?
Yeah, look, I'd say from about, if someone's in good health, I'd say 75.
Oh, I was just thinking my mum's 73 and I think she'd stomp her feet up and down and say, I'm not ready for that.
Well, I'm nearly 70.
No way.
Yeah. And it's like, don't even think about it.
Yeah. Well, yes, I've heard that if you're not performing as a mum.
Oh, I have to be nice to my middle child particularly. Apparently all three, but the middle child particularly because she knows exactly where I don't want to go.
Classic.
And she threatens.
Look, I have no doubt we are going to have so many questions that arise. I feel your passion and energy for what you do. What we love most is your tenacity and fight for your clients. Yeah. But also just chat about too, because for you, the journey doesn't end with the admission. I think that's really important you share that.
No, it's definitely not because no one, even if someone goes into care willingly and accepts that this is their journey, it still takes a good 6 to 8 weeks for someone to settle in.
Absolutely.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And they have to be aware of what can happen. Quite often, the most placid person can become very angry with their nearest and dearest and think, why have you done this to me?
I knew you'd say that, yeah.
So it's very important to be able to support the family and walk them through how to manage it because as a daughter or a son, our first thing is I must visit as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that most staff in aged care homes would say if it's upsetting the resident, you know what, the best thing is don't visit every day. But you can phone and you can have a chat either to mum or dad or to the staff, just find out how they're going.
There's a real guilt there, isn't there?
We beat ourselves up.
Oh, and, you spoke about it off air, about that carer fatigue.
Oh, it's real.
Even just my own personal experience, the family being like, we can do it. And, we had my granddad, prior to his admission just for a weekend and he had Lewy body dementia and Marie, he was up, down, he was out the door, he was down the street, he was pants off, pants on, toilet. Yeah. And so, my heart just, it just beams for those people that can do it. But my gosh, it's full on.
Yeah. So I always make sure on admission day that everything has gone as planned. And I like for families to have admission day where they don't have to worry about paperwork because there's still so much that has to be done that I can't do anyway.
Yes. You can do almost all of it, right?
Yeah, but, then you come to this doorway where the door is closed. So I like homes, if they can, to do a pre-admission meeting.
Great.
So on admission day, it's just about settling in. So always checking that everything's gone as it should have. Now, quite often that means someone's come from hospital in an ambulance and they do a wonderful job, but we're at the mercy of when that ambulance turns up.
Yeah, of course. I never even isn't that funny? I just well, not funny, but I just made a presumption that they would just be the family would take people. Of course.
No, there's it's always nice for family to be able to take them, but quite often it's not practical.
And again, like I said, I had this misconception that it was our experience which was doing the paperwork, not so much the hospital component.
Yeah. So
quite clinical.
Yes, very. And it so I then check back in within 2 weeks' time. But as long as the family knows, they can call me or email me anytime, that's fine, because 2 weeks is actually a long time.
Yeah.
But at 2 weeks, they might say, oh, no, they're not settling, or this hasn't happened, or I was told that they would do this every day. And so as long as they're asking the right person as to, oh, look, Mum's mentioned that she hasn't had a shower for 3 or 4 days.
Well, you know the language, Marie, and you did say that people are a bit worried. They don't want any mistreatment, and
so
it's who's the right person.
Yeah, always the clinical manager.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Clinical managers. So one of the things that's one of the most common things that we'll hear: oh, Mum or Dad hasn't been showered.
Yes.
So 2 things around this. One of the documents that has to be signed is called the Charter of Rights, and the very first principle on this document is that the resident is encouraged to maintain their independence as long as possible.
Okay.
So you've got the lovely lady or gent that has come into the room, woken Mary up at 7 o'clock, and it's a freezing cold morning, and said, are you ready for your shower?
Yeah.
If I was Mary, I'd say, go away.
Yeah.
And so they do.
Yeah.
Because they can't force someone to have a shower.
Yeah, great.
And they might come back in an hour's time.
Yep.
Oh,
time
Mary,
depending really with their schedule.
Mary, are you ready for your shower? No. So consequently, they don't get showered. They'll have a wash.
Yes.
It's all about letting the person in charge know, well, perhaps you could just say to Mum, Mary, we're going to have a shower now. So it's all about the approach.
And education. And I think that's what I'm just consistently blown away every time we catch up. It's just all those little things, isn't it, that you've got, years and years and years of knowledge and years of your due diligence and checking out. I think ultimately, like, loud and clear, the message is to engage somebody of your calibre. Let's shift gear a little bit. I know we did say we were going to get into some more juicy stuff, but there is plenty of time for our next visit on that. What I loved most importantly is that you did say that every home that you haven't experienced, and I love that because you are advocating for your clients, and I know you're really good as well at negotiating and getting the best package for them as well.
Yeah, it's when we're looking at negotiating the costs,
which people wouldn't know you can do, right, Marie?
Yeah, exactly. Now, sometimes, because we all love a bargain, but sometimes it's not in the person's best interest, because accommodation costs. So when you're living in your home is exempt for pension purposes. When you pay an accommodation cost, that is treated like your home, so it too is exempt for pension purposes. In this day and age where property prices, homes are selling for so much, it's often not the ideal thing to negotiate a lower cost because that person might then lose part of their pension.
Sure.
But this is where a specialist financial advisor, aged care financial advisor, comes into play.
Yeah.
And they should be able to give you 2 or 3 different scenarios.
Great. I think, look, ultimately, that's the message loud and clear, is there's help available.
Yes.
This is such a big path to navigate. And like I said to you off air, you need to do your own podcast because you would just honestly help the masses, which is great. But, you just mentioned your dream holiday. You've just had your holiday. Where would be your dream? Let's learn a little bit about Marie.
Marie, Italy.
Beautiful.
Italy would be it.
Yes.
Or a cruise, actually. I'm a real cruise addict. But I
Bingo
love
on
Italy.
a cruise?
Yeah, no.
I love it. That was my thing with my gran growing up. She'd even smoke in the bingo hall, Marie. God bless her. She'd give me one little card. She had a big thing. But it's a nice relaxing holiday.
Yes, love cruising. So we've been fortunate to do several. But I'd actually love to spend 6 to 12 months in Italy.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
well, you do it.
Around.
So I was my next question would be your favourite food and drinks. Are we Italian?
Italian and seafood.
Oh, nice.
Doesn't matter. It could be a snag on the barbecue if someone else is cooking it.
I've always said I've never met a salad I've made that I've liked. Someone else makes a salad, I love it. Honestly, it's such a treat, isn't it?
Love being cooked for.
Your life has been full of beautiful memories.
Yes.
You've been with your husband Mike for 49 years.
Yes.
That is
married for.
Married for.
We went to school together.
You are you genuinely are an angel.
No, he's the angel.
Good play. Yeah. But look, you even just said too, you've had a holiday. You're kind of getting to know each other again. It's a new phase of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I think this is important. For anyone, any couple, because I think. If you're going to grow old together, and live in the same house, it'd be nice to get on with them.
Probably a good start.
Good start.
Probably a reason why there's a lot of the divorce rate is through the roof. I think a lot of people aren't in loving who they're married to.
Yeah. And so it is fun. And look, we laugh a lot. He mainly laughs at me, and the kids, Ryan will tell you some stories and they just shake their heads with myself. But I think it's important for couples when they're going or considering going into care, and one is still healthy and fit and the other one needs that care, and they think, no, I can do it. One thing that I do say to my families is that, and we'll use the scenario of the husband being the one that needs to go into care. And I would say to the wife, it's time to go back to being a wife and not a nurse.
Yeah.
Spend whatever time you have sitting, talking, doing things together.
It's beautiful.
That's what it's all about. You don't need to be worrying about cleaning up a mess because that's it happens.
It does. Happens. Yeah, that's certainly scenarios I've seen as well. Oh gosh, you are just honestly one of my favorite people. I just have loved that the universe has put us together. I would love our conversation to come. I don't want it to come to an end, but I would love to close our conversation with you sharing a little bite of wisdom, your favorite quote or saying.
I read this quote. I think it was the week I started making phone calls to homes to go and visit them. So around 11 years ago, and it goes along the lines of your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, but how you leave someone after they've met you is just everything.
Isn't that amazing?
So, and then the other one that I like is the ironing board one. And we've all got stomachs like ironing boards. It's just some have much bigger piles.
I love it. Yeah, I'm definitely never a flat ironing board. I love it. Oh, that is so funny. Well, look, it has been, you have been an amazing star, by the way, for your first podcast. Absolutely
Thank you,
amazing. You have so much to give the world. You have obviously made a huge impact in so many people's lives. I hope that our podcast can be shared wide and far for those that need help in that next step, and just knowing how to begin and navigate. And you've given some really good insight. And like I said, to dispel some of the myths and fears.
Yes, yeah. I think that's the important thing. And sometimes it's just a matter of a phone call. You know, it's just about, no, you can do this or you can do that. And I never, ever want to think that someone is not engaging because they feel that they can't.
Yeah.
Whether that's due to, you know, it not being affordable. It is. I mean, there's different horses for courses.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can make it work. And if I can help over the phone, I can guide you.
Yeah, amazing. Well, look, I am going to make sure that all of your details are shared so that people can reach out. And I know that, you have already made a huge impact. But it has been such a lovely catch up, Marie. You are my final guest for Series 1 of Beyond the Signboard. It has been an amazing journey of dispelling, I guess, the perception that real estate is easy. This just gave us a really great platform, I guess, to share a bit of a behind the scenes of just one experience, but also just the ability to have, a really strong professional network, referral partners, and just always having the client in mind first and foremost.
Yes. It's and what I've found, Amy, is that the people that I have worked with that have come my way because of yourself, for them, it's been about the empathy that has stemmed from selling a home, which you don't often see in real estate. So I think McGraths are exceptional.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to working together, well and truly into the future. The Sunshine Coast is greater for you being back. You have an amazing day one of back to work. Thank you, Marie. You've been a blessing.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond the Signboard. We trust you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it for you. If there are any topics you want covered in the future, make sure you reach out and let us know. Also, feedback and suggestions are appreciated almost as much as likes, shares and downloads.